go back a little bit to how I met my ex-husband and how we were put together. And I'm only doing this because this lets you see what this religion is about. And it also allows you to see where I came from. First of all, I grew up as a Jehovah's Witness. My dad was a ministerial servant and an elder for years and years and years and regular pioneer. My dad didn't work. He only went door to door preaching. That was his job. That was his passion. And he wanted us to follow in his shoes. That's what Daddy wanted for us. And especially that's what he wanted for me. He singled me out as a child. When I was in the 7th grade, like any other child does, you get in fights with your friends. I was homeschooled for most of my lifetime, but I was allowed to go to 5th, 6th, and 7th grade public school. Best years of my life. But in the 7th grade, after I got in a fight with one of my best friends, Alicia, with whom I've reconnected through Facebook, I remember I went home after the principal had already punished both her and I. We got spanked back then. That was allowed in schools. The principal called home and told my dad. We spanked Vangela because she got in a little fight with her friend. And when I got home, my dad beat me so bad on the butt. And he knew exactly where he could beat me so that Child Protective Services couldn't take me away. And he did just that. He beat me so bad that the next day when I went to school, I couldn't sit down at the desk. I had to stand. And then my teacher said, Vanjie, why don't you sit down? And I'm like, I can't. And she's like, why? And I was like, because my butt hurts. Well, why does your butt hurt? Because my dad spanked me. So she sent me to the nurse, and the nurse in turn called Child Protective Services, and they came to check us out. My dad had already done his research. My dad knew what he could and couldn't do. And he did exactly up to what he could do without getting in trouble. So we weren't taken away, but I was taken out of public school from then on. I skipped the 8th grade, the whole entire 8th grade, and I taught myself 9th through 10th grade, or 9th through 12th grade, because I didn't have a teacher. I didn't have anybody to teach me. My parents weren't college educated. They only had a high school diploma. My dad, I believe that's all he had too, a high school diploma. My mom didn't start taking a few accounting classes until later on in life after I had left home. So I was pretty much on my own. It was extremely difficult, and I felt dumb, and I felt stupid, and I figured that I had no future. I graduated when I was 17, and about that same time, my dad had some of his friends who knew people in Monterrey, Mexico. Granted, we were living in Port Isabel, Texas, which was very close to the border of Reynosa, or not Reynosa, but Matamoros. And he would have some of his friends who had friends in Mexico who were all in the same religion, all devout Jehovah's Witnesses. And yes, there are many, many, many Jehovah's Witnesses in Mexico, believe it or not. And pretty much he told me, okay, you're 17, you can date now, but whoever you choose to date, that is going to be your husband. So I was presented with several gentlemen who were all Mexican, all in the religion, all held some sort of a high position in the religion, such as a ministerial servant or a pioneer. And I got to meet each one of them, exchange addresses and phone numbers with them, and I met Luis, who was 6 years older than me, who was also, now my ex-husband and the father of my children. And we dated for about a year and got married. To me, I was ecstatic. I wanted to get married because I wanted out of that house so bad. I did not want somebody telling me how to live my life. Of course, I didn't know that I was practically marrying my father when I married Luis. They were so much alike, and I think that's why my dad approved of him, and that's why my dad accepted him and wanted me to get married to him. As soon as I was married, 4 months later, my parents moved, and I saw them every once in a blue moon. So you can see, my parents were more about the religion and more about themselves than they were their children. So, being married to Luis, I was married almost 19 years to him. I knew there was instances and times when I only dreamed of walking away. But then for my children, I stayed. The threat from the congregation, from the elders, was always there, that if you ever leave, you won't have any friends or family. And that stuck in my mind, and I didn't want to be alone. Nobody wants to be alone. I didn't want to lose anybody, so I hung in there. And finally, after receiving my bachelor's degree, I went to school. I started on, began studying, getting my master's degree, and in that time frame, I was reading up about women's rights and equal rights, and things just started to click in my head, and I realized, you know what, I'm letting these people manipulate me and tell me how to live my life and be who they want me to be. I'm not who I want to be. And so I started getting this idea in my head that I think it's time for me to stand up and be who I want to be, because that's what I want for my children.